Yeah, well, I think in film, when someone's playing when there are twins in the film, there's a tradition of one actor playing both parts, but also the opposite, that two actors play both parts. And the big fear was that it would become a gimmick, and the audience wouldn't be able to forget it. And the thing was that Tom had to disappear in a way, and just leave behind these two separate brothers. And when I first met him, because Reggie is the lead in the film, I went to him to play Reggie. Had dinner with him, and all he talked about was Ron. He wanted to play Ron. All I talked about was Reggie. And at the end of the dinner, he looked at me and he said, "I'll give you Reggie if you give me Ron." And I said, "That's a deal." And we went from there. It's a little bit like that old Reese's peanut butter commercial where they say, "You got chocolate on my peanut butter and you got peanut butter on my chocolate." I was like, "You got Ron on my Reggie," and that kind of thing. So anyways. Right, well, I found the story of the Kray brothers to be a very fascinating story. I'm interested in crime stories to begin with. And I've always wanted to do a gangster movie, and I like the fact that it was a British gangster movie. So all those things got me interested. It wasn't enough to make me decide I wanted to do it. But I did a lot of research, and I found out a lot about Reggie Kray's wife, Frances, and their relationship and her relationship with Ron. And then I became very interested in doing it. But I wrote the script, so first I had to write the script, and I never cast in my head really while I'm writing. I just try to write the best script I can. But when I was done, Reggie's the lead, really, so I knew I needed to get Reggie first. So I went to Tom to see if he wanted to play Reggie, and he's the first person I went to. I had seen him in a film called Warrior that I thought had a kind of Reggie Kray quality to it. And all I would talk about at the dinner was Reggie, and all he would talk about was Ron. And at the end of the dinner, Tom said to me, "I'll give you Reggie if you give me Ron." And I said, "That's a deal," and we went from there. Yeah, no, Frances Shay, before she got married, she was Shay and then Kray, met Reggie when she was 16, and they were together from the time she was 16 till she died, I think, at 23. And she was always, to me, seemed like the ghost that haunted the story of the Krays. And I was very keen to have her as a big part of the story, and also to give a woman's voice to the story through her. Well, I thought I just wanted to. It's one of those things like you'll know it when you see it, because she's playing someone who's real. I don't want her to necessarily look like the real person, but you're looking for a quality that you can't really describe, and actors will come in and read, and you'll meet with them. And when Emily Browning came in, she hadn't even started reading yet, and I knew I was going to cast her for the part, because she walked in the room and I thought, "That's Frances." No, only in the visual effects, because we didn't have enough physical time to shoot. It was a short shoot, and every scene with the two brothers had to be done twice, and we were always rushing Tom off to get changed over and rushing him back and dealing with all the technical issues we had to deal with, because it's one of those films where there's a lot of effect shots, but no one sees them. If anyone realizes it's an effect shot, you're in trouble. So the biggest difficulty was really technical. We would always start with Reggie in the morning, and Tom would get to set, and I would read Ron, and he would read Reggie, and then he would read both of them, and he'd jump back and forth, looking at himself almost. And at which point we'd lock the scene down, and he would record Ron's dialogue so that he could hear Ron's dialogue back through his ear. So he was at least playing to a voice. Then he'd go to hair and makeup. We'd set up the cameras for whatever technical thing we were doing, whatever trick we were doing with the cameras. At the same time, he would have to plan out in his head what Ron's physical reaction to his brother was going to be. So he had to have that performance of Ron in his head before he did it, so that Reggie, when he was performing, could react to a performance that hadn't been committed to film yet, in a way. So it got to be quite a puzzle that way. But it was good. It was a discipline that we applied that I think helps free him up a bit. Yeah, well, I was fascinated by them for one reason, because they seem very much like American gangsters to me. they were brothers in a lot of American crime families. I mean, they call them families because they start out as cousins and brothers, because you can trust each other. So they had that quality. They grew up in the East End during the Blitz, so during the World War II, when their neighborhood, which was industrial and heavily targeted by the Germans during the war, every night houses were being blown up. Your friend from down the block, you get up in the morning and his house was gone. And I think that there was a kind of, the rules no longer applied, and there was a new world was emerging from that, and I think that explains part of why, as gangsters, they were a version of gangsters that London hadn't seen before. Well, when I was doing research, I knew about, his wife was Frances, and I knew about her from my basic research, but not a lot was written about her, and as far as things, books you could read, and newsreel footage, there was nothing there about her. And so there were some photographic references of her. There were a lot of photos of her, but I didn't know much about her. And I met several people that were contemporaries of the Krays who I asked about her, and some couldn't really, they remembered her, but they didn't have much to say about her. And I met a gentleman named Chris Lambriano who went to prison with them and was in their gang, and he's the one who filled me in a lot about her, and basically said that, he said Frances is the reason we all went to prison, and he described how after she died, Reggie shut down and stopped killing investigations and stopped bribing jurors and all these things, and he said it was almost like he was waiting for the police to come get him. And that seemed very compelling to me, and I was very keen to have, I thought what was different in this version than other versions or books that have been written about them is there's a presence of this woman that Reggie was in love with.